I want to talk a bit about James Ward-Prowse as well. Ben, standing ovation yesterday when he was subbed off on 87 minutes. As we mentioned earlier, I think Jacob said he probably would have been annoyed that he wanted to play for the final 5 minutes or so. But that was pretty emotional yesterday. And I think it's fair to say that's someone that deserves to be playing in the Premier League next year.
Yeah, I think it's catch-22, isn't it? Because as Saints fans, we obviously want to see him, I think, in the team. We're aware that the squad needs a rebuild, but potentially you don't want to lose your captain at any stage, really. But I think, he's a player that he's played for England. Saints have undoubtedly helped him on that journey. But, someone that's been at the club longer than Matt Letizia has. I think he's been there, 20 years now, hasn't he? So, someone that I think I wouldn't say he's necessarily underrated, but I think he's one of those players that potentially you'll kind of miss him when he's gone more than you kind of miss him when he's here, if that makes sense. And I think you look at the stats. I mean, he's probably not had his best season, but I think off the record, and Alfie and Jacob will know better than me, I think he's top goal scorer in the Premier League. He's top assists for Saints. Most passes, most tackles, most interceptions. I'd imagine he's in the top 3 for distance covered in the Premier League, if not number 1, because he's normally out there. So I think, I think he said yesterday he could have gone, he feels like he's delivered this season and is going out with his head held high. And I think it's hard to argue with that. But I do think as captain, again, I heard him say during this week that there's only so much he can do and standards have slipped and things like that as well. So I think there's elements of his captaincy that I think probably people would say he's not the strongest leader out there. But I think in terms of what he's done for the club and, whether he does get to stay or go, I think it was nice that he got that opportunity yesterday and for St Mary's to kind of say goodbye to him.
It was an emotional moment, wasn't it, Jacob? Everybody on their feet and everyone videoing it too as he left. That was there was a lot of those videos doing the rounds yesterday. But I don't think anyone would begrudge him his move. I know we've spoken about this before, but he would leave with everybody's best interests.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously you had Theo Walcott first, who he got a standing ovation. Everyone sat down. Elyounoussi then goes off, another standing ovation, or well, half and half, and then James Ward-Prowse, obviously the biggest standing ovation for him. I think what James Ward-Prowse has done, a lot of it is intangible as well. People don't see it in terms of him being the conduit between the dressing room and the ownership in some respects, but also the coaching staff as well. The role model he is, the attitude he is in terms of welcoming the youngsters in when they train with the first team. What he does, he's the glue in a dressing room that's been pretty fragmented this season, and he's always the guy that everyone looks to, and he can only do so much. So he might not be the loudest, he might be the only one that speaks in a huddle after they concede a goal, but what he does do is that he's one that everyone looks to when there's a crisis, and unfortunately there's been too many crises this season for Ward-Prowse to keep bailing Southampton out of it. I think what he's done, especially in the last couple of years, but especially this year, he might not have had his best year like Ben says, but I think I've appreciated him a lot more this year because the burden on him is incredible, and he's 28 now. He's in the prime. He has to get a move away, and for a guy that's done so much for Southampton over 2 decades, given everything, you can't accuse him of leaving anything left in the tank. I think having a move away to stay in the Premier League and to keep his England aspirations alive is what he deserves.
Is that going to be key, do you think, Alfie? Just the England aspirations, and this is a chance for him to prove himself at potentially a bigger club and maybe win something, dare I say, or at least get back in that England squad?
I think possibly. He's got a very hard task once to get back in the England squad, hasn't he, really? I think, being totally honest, Gareth Southgate seems to like Conor Gallagher, and obviously we've got Bellingham, Rice and that as well. But I think Adam Blackmore made a good point this week on the radio. I think he spoke to James Ward-Prowse during the week, and he asked him what was his favourite seasons at Southampton. He said about the European seasons, and he said, which one? He said, either. I think James Ward-Prowse was always making it relatively clear that European football is his aim, and he wants to experience that. He loved it playing for Southampton, and hopefully he gets that again. Obviously, I'd like to plant the seed in his head that if he was to stay and get Saints promoted, he would be an even bigger legend than he already is. That would be fantastic. But on the leadership thing as well, I think we only have the testimony of others, and I think Theo Walcott came out and spoke to us, and he was very clear that right, you might not hear Prowse all the time if you're sat in the Northern or whatever, but he is the leader in that group, and he said this. And on a professional level as well, with Ward-Prowse, he's somebody who often gets wheeled out by the club when they've been hammered or when they've lost a big game, and it's probably not at the time he wants to talk, but he's always professional. He's always happy to chat, and he's always pretty honest. I think the only question he's ever been not honest with me, in my opinion, is asking about his future. I think it's because he probably can't reveal anymore, so you have to give him that. But yeah, I'll miss him for sure.